So welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to your brain on testosterone and the war on masculinity. This is a talk that I've been excited to give for a while. This is my passion topic, and this is an area which I have spent a large amount of time working with clients as well as researching myself. So without further ado, let's get into it. I'm going to define a few neurotransmitters and hormones before we get started, because everyone's going to have a different understanding of neuropsychiatry coming into this. So I would like to just give a quick minute to start by just doing a short 101. So this is a big oversimplification, but just for the sake of understanding. So dopamine and serotonin are both considered positive or happy neurotransmitters, but they are very different. So dopamine is more related to motivation, pleasure, drive, and satisfaction. And the important distinction between dopamine and serotonin is that dopamine is excitatory, and it's also subject to tolerance. Serotonin, on the other hand, is more associated with happiness and contentment, but it's actually inhibitory, which means it's relaxing as opposed to being stimulatory, and it's not subject to tolerance and downregulation, which is a very important distinction. Norepinephrine and noradrenaline are the same thing, so those terms are used interchangeably. I tend to refer to it as norepinephrine, but you can use the term noradrenaline if you prefer, but for the rest of this lecture we'll be using norepinephrine. Norepinephrine is a neurotransmitter related to focus, drive, and urgency. Cortisol and adrenaline are stress hormones. They do serve a lot of different roles in the body outside of stress, but they are typically classified as stress hormones, and they are very centrally involved in the fight or flight response as a response from the adrenal glands to perceived stress. And GABA, or GABA, I say GABA, is our primary inhibitory neurotransmitter. So it is the target of compounds like alcohol, benzodiazepines, a lot of sleeping tablets, and it's known as the brakes for the brain, and it balances out our excitatory neurotransmitters like dopamine and norepinephrine. And it is also very important for a flow state. And this is a state of being in the moment, being present, and being in a creative or uninterrupted state. And we call this alpha brainwaves as opposed to beta brainwaves, which are more to do with chaotic and interrupted thoughts. And I'm going to be coming back to a lot of these terms as we go on. So let's just take a quick snapshot of where we're at in 2022. And a lot of this stuff is quite disturbing. 57% of men are overweight. 41% of men are obese. This is in the United States. 8% of men are on some form of psychiatric medication. 75 to 80% of suicide victims are male. 1/3 of adults have reported periods of extreme chronic stress, and this increases to 44% for adults over the age of 55. 20% of men will experience periods of diagnosable anxiety, while 12.5% will experience a period of a major depressive disorder. Between 1999 and 2016, testosterone levels have plummeted. A study comparing men ages 18 to 30 and men aged 55 plus in 2011 did not show a significant difference in testosterone levels between the two groups. Now, in this particular study, this was not actually the focus of the study. It was just noted as a side note that when they compared the testosterone levels of the younger men and the older men in 2011, there was no difference statistically. This is quite disturbing because, as a lot of us know, or this might be your first time hearing this, but testosterone levels in men peak at the end of puberty and then they decline over a period. So to have men aged between 18 and 30 having on average the same testosterone as a cohort of men over the age of 55 is not a good sign. Sperm counts have dropped by over 50% since 1973 to 2011, and almost half of first marriages end in divorce, while climbing rates for each subsequent marriage. So the second and third marriages have a higher divorce rate. But the most important part of this for the topic of this lecture is that almost 70% of divorces are initiated by women. Suicide increased by 4% between 2020 and 2021. So what do we do? This is where we're at. What do we do? And how do we save ourselves as men? How do we save our sons and their sons to allow all of us to live life to its fullest potential? So there's a few key points that I'm going to raise as we go through this lecture. I don't have a huge amount of time, but I have a huge amount of content to cover. So TRT reverse engineers the crisis, but it is not enough on its own. So this is going to be a big overarching point of this speech, is that while testosterone replacement therapy is a tool in the toolbox and it is a useful weapon to fight this war against masculinity, doing a shot of testosterone does not solve the problem. And a lot of men who've been on TRT or who have seen men who've gone through TRT and it doesn't solve their problems overnight, they know this. So a key point here, and I'm going to come back to a few of these keys as we go through the lecture, is do you want high serum testosterone levels, or do you want to be the man who was built on high testosterone levels? Because taking a shot of testosterone and jacking your serum testosterone levels up is not going to turn you into the masculine man that you're wanting to be overnight. It is a process. And this is a big expectation that people have that is incorrect when they start TRT, is that the testosterone alone is not going to get them where they want to be. And that is because testosterone is a bioidentical hormone and it works with you, not on you. So understand that testosterone does not make you into a masculine man. It facilitates you becoming that man, but it will not do the work for you. So, your brain on testosterone, part one. Testosterone facilitates and modulates the production and synthesis of dopamine, but it does not create it on its own. Amphetamines, cocaine, other stimulants like caffeine, they are releasing agents for dopamine. Testosterone is not a stimulant, it is a hormone. This means that if you do your shot of testosterone or you put on your testosterone cream or however you administer your TRT, this is not going to cause a long-term state of euphoria. This is not going to have a prolonged, unique antidepressant effect, but it is going to facilitate the production of dopamine in your day-to-day activities. So testosterone will not get you off the couch and into the gym, but it will give you the results that you deserve if you do that work. And this is a big factor which comes down to one of the main issues that perpetuates the state of depression and deterioration of hypogonadal men, is that if you've got hypogonadism and you have low testosterone and you're eating well and you're going to the gym and you're doing everything right, but you're still feeling like crap, you're still putting on weight, you're not putting on muscle, you're not getting stronger in the gym, you're following a program, you're following the program that your friends are following or that you read online, but you're plateauing, you're not recovering, you're feeling worse after you train than if you hadn't gone to the gym. So why bother? And this is the state that a lot of these guys get into when you've been hypogonadal for a year, 5 years, 10 years, maybe even your entire adult life. Why go and do the work if you're going to feel like crap anyway? We are reward-driven creatures, and if the reward pathway is not functioning properly, why do the work? And this is the cycle that a lot of these guys get into. It's this learned failure. It's this learned fear. Why keep going to the gym and slugging it out when it simply does not work? So testosterone will facilitate the proper dopaminergic output from purpose-driven activities, overcoming adversity or challenge, taking pride in the things you do. Derek from More Plates, More Dates has an interview with a bloke named Adam from Psyched Substance. I believe that's the name of his channel. And he has a really good quote, which he says that testosterone makes effort feel good. And that is, in summary, a huge component of TRT is it makes the effort feel good. It makes the work feel good. It makes the journey worthwhile, not just the reward. Exercise is an extremely important releasing factor for dopamine. So bioavailable vitamins, minerals, and amino acids form the building blocks for your brain to make dopamine, but it's the activities that you do that press the production button. And testosterone, as well as hormones like thyroid and DHEA, are important for modulating the dopamine production. So it will not cause your brain to flood dopamine for no reason. It will not cause your brain to enter into a euphoric state if you sit on the couch and look at a wall. But if you go and press the dopamine buttons, if you do the things that exert your body, you take pride in, you overcome things, overcome adversity, overcome challenge, do things that you didn't used to be able to do, push outside your comfort zone, your brain will actually make the correct reward chemicals that you deserve. DHT, dihydrotestosterone, one of the metabolites of testosterone, commonly known as, I call it super testosterone because it works in a much more potent manner on the receptor. So DHT in the brain modulates the production of norepinephrine and GABA. So if we go back to that first slide, norepinephrine responsible for focus for present thought, focus on getting up and going, while GABA is the brakes, it's relaxation, it's rest, it's not becoming skittish and not having your brain overwhelmed with these chaotic beta brainwaves, broken thought pathways. So when you hit the yin and yang together, this is what creates what I like to call alpha male energy. This is what creates a man to be a leader, to be driven, to be focused, to be cool, calm, collected under pressure, but to seek out the challenges that most men would fail under or maybe even be too put off to even try. So dihydrotestosterone allows men to be resilient to stress and driven to overcome it, but it will not overcome stresses for you. So on the converse, what does a stressful situation feel like with low testosterone? It can be overwhelming, harder than it is rewarding. The juice is not worth the squeeze. Beta brainwaves, so this chaotic, broken thought architecture in the brain that can often make people feel tortured and suffering due to this chaotic, insufferable thought monologue that they just want to reach towards sedatives or other escape mechanisms to try to drown out or escape from. Difficult to recover from exercise, default to avoidance behavior. So if the reward is not firing, if the stress is overwhelming, you're not going to naturally default to going out and chasing these things. You're going to avoid them because they're harder than they are rewarding. And that is the human condition. We are wired to seek the path of least resistance. So this lack of positive reinforcement from the brain for overcoming stress and making a man ambitious, if you map that out over the course of his 20s, his 30s, his 40s, his 50s, this can drastically change the outcome of your life. So I'd like to have a look at a case study here, and this is not a specific case study, but as such a case study of a topic, and it is sexual performance anxiety in younger men. So when we're looking at a sexual encounter, there's this yin and yang relationship. So on one hand, we've got lust, desire, attraction, excitement, all the things that would drive a man towards a sexual encounter. But then on the other hand, the realistic part is that, this involves a man taking his clothes off, sexually performing in front of a woman that he likes and cares about, or, maybe wants a future with. This is a very strong experience for a man. And there are these two antagonizing forces. One is a stressor and one is this positive excitement. And when there's adequate testosterone and a man has good self-esteem, the lust and drive and excitement will overcome any of those little insecurities around, lack of performance, lack of self-esteem, or maybe I'll be judged or this and that. Those thoughts are still there, but they're completely drowned out by this lust and desire and this sexual urge. But without adequate testosterone, that buffer is not there. So this unregulated cascade of stress hormones and this huge overwhelming fight or flight response will cause a man's erection pathway to be shut down. The blood gets drawn away from extremities and towards the vital organs. So what happens is over time, when a young man has these failed sexual encounters where he loses his erection or doesn't have the ability to achieve one in the first place, embarrassed, hurting the other person, this feeling of vulnerability because he maybe feels humiliated by this event, this will create a pathway and a reinforced behavior where he will associate these feelings of arousal, associate these feelings of sexual encounters and intimacy with this humiliation and embarrassment, and then he will avoid it. It will become a vicious cycle, and I come back to this term later in the lecture. People call this it's called a positive feedback loop, but I think that sounds like a good thing. So it's a vicious cycle. Bad perpetuates bad. And younger men resort to easier pathways for sexual gratification and dopamine to avoid this. So this is when younger men get led to porn or excessive masturbation, avoiding sexual encounters, avoiding intimacy, avoiding connection, avoiding pair bonding. They end up becoming lonely. The vicious cycle repeats. And as a result, they don't become emotionally mature. They don't form and build families. They become lonely and isolated. And this cycle perpetuates. Testosterone antagonizes cortisol. So this is what I was talking about here. And cortisol antagonizes testosterone. So testosterone blocks the effect of stress, but stress blocks the effect of testosterone. So again, Positive feedback loop. I call it a vicious cycle. So if the man cannot make enough testosterone to balance and counter the effects of stress, he's going to become overwhelmed by it, more sensitive to it, and more negatively impacted by stress. Chronic stress will lead to a low testosterone state, while a low testosterone state will make a man more vulnerable to the physiological and psychological effects of stress. Stress is not bad in general. Overcoming stress is good. Stress drives us. Stress makes us become better. Stress is a motivating factor, but if it is unregulated or it is chronic, that is when it can start to have deteriorating outcomes. So what if a man's internal and external environment are working against him to prevent him from making optimal testosterone in the first place? Exercise is more difficult and discouraging than euphoric and motivating. Effort stops feeling good and starts feeling hard. What if this occurs during a man's development? So if a man is in his prime, in his late teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, and then he starts to get a bit older, starts to get a bit slow, starts to slow down, it's a very different outcome for what if that man's identity, what if that man's entire trajectory of his life is formed around this exercising feeling hard, effort feels bad, everything feels hard, avoiding all the things that make you uncomfortable. It's going to lead to a completely different outcome, but also a completely different way that that man perceives himself. The inner monologue is built around fear. That voice in the head, the identity is built around, I am afraid. I am not confident. I am not resilient. I am not driven to overcoming my fears and my insecurities. And that will completely change the course of a man's life. So here's another key. Many young men are doing everything right to produce optimal testosterone levels, but they remain hypogonadal even in their teen years and 20s. So there is a myth that if you're 18 to 30 or 18 to 25 and you're eating well, you're lean, you're exercising, you're getting sunlight, you will have no problems producing testosterone. This is not true for the younger generation. It may be true for some people. Not everyone is negatively impacted by this, and I'm going to talk about the factors that lead to this later in this lecture. But it's important to understand, and this is something that I see all the time working with younger men, is that these guys come in and they're not just doing everything right. They are going above and beyond. They have gone to the nth degree of nailing every possible variable that they can in their production of natural testosterone. And when you ask them why they do it, why they go to such extreme measures to fight a losing battle, it's because if they have a cheat meal, if they don't get up and do their cardio every morning, if they don't have an ice bath or a sauna every day, if they don't do all these biohacks, they fall apart. They can't even hold it together. They jerk off once and they have one orgasm and they're depressed for a week. This is not how you're supposed to live from 18 to 25. Yes, you're meant to look after yourself, and that's what this whole lecture is about. Looking after yourself and doing everything right to make your testosterone work properly, but it should be something that makes you feel good. It shouldn't be the thing that you have to go above and beyond in every possible waking second of your life to avoid feeling like complete and utter crap. So this means that in his prime, so when a man is young, he is not driven to, by default, or able to overcome, persevere, and achieve his goals. And he may not even have the goals in the first place. And the thing is, testosterone levels just decline over time. So if a man has low testosterone from 18 to 25, it's all downhill. So there's an interesting disconnect between the stereotypes of an 18 to 25-year-old man and the reality of an 18 to 25-year-old man in 2022. When we talk about what a young man, 18 to 25 should be, high sex drive, high metabolism, high energy, risk-taking, athletic, aggressive, in their prime. In reality, if you look around at the average 18 to 25-year-old in countries like the UK, Australia, and the United States, not all of them, but the majority, or close to, low libido, erectile dysfunction, overweight, lazy, anxiety and depression, despondent, passive and submissive, low motivation, and anhedonic. Anhedonic means not getting pleasure from things that should bring you pleasure, and it is a form of depression. So In reality, a lot of these younger guys are struggling. They are not doing well, and they are suffering in silence because they may not be at the point that they want to take their own life. They may not be at the point that they cannot get out of bed every morning, but they are not getting enjoyment out of life, and they are not getting contentment from the things that they should be getting contentment from. And this is driving them away from the things that they should be doing and leading them towards the things that they shouldn't be doing, such as excessive masturbation, drugs, alcohol, and other forms of escapism. Another key point here. A shot of testosterone does not hit the reset button on a man's character, values, identity, inner monologue, career, relationship, or past. Going on TRT will not transform all that stuff overnight. It does not hit the reset button, but it gives you a catalyst. It gives you an opportunity to make change, but it will not change all these things for you, and it will not undo these things by default. It will give you the opportunity to rebuild. Repairing the foundation of a house does not rebuild it. It only gives you the opportunity to do so. Buying a sports car will not make you a better driver. In fact, if you're a terrible driver and you buy a sports car, you're probably more likely going to crash it and lose control. But these things give you the potential and the tools that you need to either become a better driver or rebuild yourself into a better version of yourself, to become a better man and to have the capacity to be the man that you've always wanted to be, but it will not do the work for you. I really like the house analogy. I use the house analogy a lot because if you've got a house that's built on a bad foundation, you could have the floor falling away, you could have the bathroom tiles cracking, and you can repair them every 6 months, every year, and they will continue to fall away until you rebuild that foundation. But if you fixed your bathroom tiles 10 times and they keep falling apart and you fix the foundation, you've got to rebuild it the 11th time. You've got to go, okay, every other time I tried to put this work in, every other time I tried to lose weight, every other time I tried to push past, a 2-plate squat, whatever you're trying to do that has been inhibited, has been held back by hypogonadism, if you have repaired the issue, if you have gone on testosterone replacement therapy, if you have fixed the foundation, you need to go into that bathroom and fix the tiles for the 11th time and know that the first 10 times it fell apart again because the foundation was broken. But fixing the foundation is not going to repair those bathroom tiles for you. Similarly to driving a car, if you go out and get yourself a Lamborghini and you're a terrible driver, it will not make you as good of a driver as the average Lambo driver. It will not, because those guys have been driving Lamborghinis for years. If you've had low testosterone for your entire life, and at the age of 30 you go on TRT, you are not going to wake up the next day as Dwayne Johnson. It is not going to happen. It will give you the capacity to build yourself into the best, most masculine version of yourself, but it will not do it for you. And it sure as shit is not going to do it overnight. So 5 lessons on the war on masculinity. You are a sum of your interactions, habits, diet, thoughts, and actions. These are the things that make you who you are. These are the things that change who you are on a day-to-day basis over time, week to week, month to month, year to year. If you put the work into what you put in your body, how you show up and how you treat others, even how you think, how you relate to yourself, how you see yourself in relation to others, and your actions in the world, these are the things that make you into the man that you are and the man that you could become. So changing the small things day to day is going to impact who you are and how you feel in a month's time, a year's time, and in a decade's time. Changing the trajectory now is what is going to impact how you feel in a year's time. And it's important to understand that, because there are very few things that are good for you and that are sustainable that can instantly take you from feeling terrible to make you feel good. Very, very few things. Testosterone creates a catalyst for change and an opportunity for a metamorphosis, but it will not make the choice for you. If you go on testosterone and you've had a hypogonadal level of free testosterone and you bring it up to an optimal level, that may dispose you to wanting to learn martial arts. It may dispose you to wanting to lose 10, 20 kilos of body fat. It may dispose you to go, hey, I actually want to train and start pushing around some weight, or I may want to work on my career. I may want to work on my relationships. I may even want to be a father. but it's not going to do it for you. It may change your thought processes. It may change the way at default that you relate to yourself and the world around you, but it's not going to put you in the gym. It's not going to get you up before work to put the workout in. It's not going to structure your workouts for you. It's not going to structure your diet for you, but it may give you that catalyst to put the wind up your ass, to put the wind in the sails and go, okay, let's do this. Testosterone may make you more disposed or inclined towards masculine activities and thought processes, but it is not a panacea. So again, it will not make you repulsed by junk food. It will not make you get up and do 10,000 steps every day. It will not put an extra plate on your bench press. It will not. It may dispose you to wanting to do those things. It doesn't make those things any less hard, because those things are still all difficult. And changing habits, changing toxic thought processes, changing bad behaviors that have maybe even become a maladaptive coping mechanism or even part of your identity, they are all hard to do. Testosterone will not make them happen for you, and it may make you disposed to putting the work in. It's not going to make it easier. It's going to give you the results that you deserve. Testosterone replacement therapy works with you, not on you. This is something I say all the time to all my clients. A lot of my clients think I sound like a broken record when I say this, but I speak from experience, someone who's been on testosterone replacement therapy for the best part of a decade. It works with you, not on you. It is not a bulletproof vest for drugs and alcohol. It is not a bulletproof vest for undersleeping. It is not a bulletproof vest for trashing your body. And we're going to get into a little bit later on why it can actually make you more accountable to yourself. Because if you're not working in alignment with your testosterone, if you're not looking after yourself and you're pumping your body full of testosterone when your body is naturally trying to suppress its own production because you're trashing yourself, it may work against you. Staying up all night and drinking 5 cups of coffee is not going to solve the sleep deprivation problem. Being obese and trashing your body and pumping yourself full of test is not going to make you healthy. It takes equal or greater time to undo and heal damage as it did to inflict it. If you have looked after yourself like shit for the last year, it is going to take a lot of time and a lot of work to undo that. Testosterone may expedite the process. It may make the process more rewarding. It may make overcoming, setting and achieving goals feel more motivating, but it's not going to do it for you.